The Government Accountability Office says that the Trump administration broke the law by withholding that U.S. security aid to Ukraine.
The Trump administration violated the law by withholding military aid to Ukraine.
And the Trump administration did violate the law. It's called the Empowerment Control Act, and it's a law that says the president must spend money that Congress appropriated.
What the administration did was illegal and violating the Federal Empowerment Act of 1974 that actually requires the administration to spend money that has been appropriated by Congress.
The Trump administration's decision to withhold money from Ukraine was wrong. In fact, it wasn't just wrong, it was illegal.
A faithful execution of the law does not permit the president to substitute his own policy priorities for those that Congress has enacted into law.
If the Congress appropriates money and the president disagrees with that appropriation, he can veto it. If it's then passed over his veto, he might then say, well, I'm just not going to execute the law, I'm just going to spend the money. So to prevent that, the Empowerment Act was passed. And
the Trump administration did violate a law that governs how White House distributes money approved by Congress. This all goes back to those funds that were withheld from Ukraine.
The Trump administration violated the law. In fact, Hallie, this was a law that was passed in response to abuses by President Nixon back in 1974. So echoes of Watergate here.
Was border security or funding for the wall discussed during the negotiation, and who will pay for the wall?
Yes, the wall. We're getting $1.6 billion for the wall this year. We got 1.6. We have about $3.2 billion in the wall. We're doing a lot of work people don't realize. I don't really want to talk about it because I can build it quickly at one time, which is what I want. But we've been building it over the last year and a half with $3.2 billion, 1.6, and we now have another 1.6. And I've got a big decision to make after the election.
CBP Acting Commissioner Mark Morgan is warning against the economic impact canceling the construction of the southern border wall will have. Morgan saying that canceling wall contracts would cost taxpayers millions of dollars in termination costs, leave critical materials and innovative technology behind, and force thousands of construction workers to lose their jobs. Presumptive President-elect Joe Biden has previously vowed that he would immediately stop the construction of that southern border wall. Take a listen.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
Stand together. The states need to step in and make Joe Biden do his job.
And Mr. Paxton, it's violating the Constitution because the money was already appropriated by Congress, right?
Yeah, the President of the United States, his obligation is to implement federal law, not ignore it. In this case, there was an appropriation for 2 different years of over $1 billion each year. And instead of using the money the way it was intended by Congress, he just said, we're just going to waste it. We're still going to spend the money, but we're actually not going to build the wall, which is very unfortunate for us because we know that walls work. We also know that the Department of Homeland Security had determined that the walls work.
President Biden, within his first 30 days, said not another foot. He shut down what was appropriated by Congress, 250 miles of border wall construction. And he made the statement, not another foot. Because of this, the Department of Defense then had to spend $2 billion to terminate the contracts that was for something that Congress said needed to happen. I would contend that's not reasonable. It's not a good expenditure of the taxpayer monies. And it's usurping Article 1, Section 1 that says that all legislative powers should be vested in the Congress, not by executive order letting the president undermine Congress. Now we continue to spend $130,000 a day to store and maintain those sections of wall rusting and wasting on the ground. It's not reasonable. You were, and looking at your history, you were under President Obama. You served as a Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security from 13 to 16 when Obama built a 150-mile of wall in tandem with the Secure Fence Act of 2006. The Biden budget that now proposes, you all proposing to spend $4.7 billion at this for a Southwest Border Contingency Fund that's set up to deal with the surge. We look at it as a slush fund instead of building physical barriers. And I say physical barriers because I think it's important to note you served under an administration where you at some time adhered to the belief in physical barriers. There was a time where both Democrats and Republicans believed in it. Don't forget that President Biden, when he was Senator Biden, voted for the Secure Fence Act, which included physical barriers. It's not reasonable where we're at when the experts, even serving directly under you, are saying they disagree with that decision. Do you agree with your expert, Custom and Patrol Border Chief Raul Ortiz, who said before this committee last month that he disagreed with Biden's decision to shut down the construction of that 250-mile border wall that Congress appropriated funds for?
Congressman, I stand by the decision of this administration to cease construction of the wall. I should say.
Can I just reclaim my time if it's okay?
That I have approved the closing of approximately 129 gaps and completion of gates.